Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the TELUS Club at the Scotiabank Saddledome here in Calgary. My name is Taylor Roca. I'm the Director of Communications for the Western Hockey League, and it's my distinct pleasure to be here on a very momentous day for the WHL. I'd like to start by thanking Calgary Sports and Entertainment, along with the staff of the TELUS Club and the Scotiabank Saddledome for accommodating us today. Everything's been fantastic, and we really appreciate the support. We've got a number of special guests in attendance here today that I'd just like to recognize before we get going. Mike Moore, Governor of the Calgary Hitmen. John Bean, President, CEO of the Calgary Flames, alternate Governor of the Calgary Hitmen. Brent Sutter, owner, Governor of the Red Deer Rebels. Rebecca Johnston, four-time Olympian, three-time gold medalist with Canada's women's national team, and now working in player development with Calgary Flames. We have Scott Salmond here from Hockey Canada, Senior Vice President, High Performance and Hockey Operations, and Wayne McNeil, co-founder of the Respect Group, is here as well. So thanks for joining us. And last but certainly not least, we have a number of WHL alumni in the room. Appreciate everybody being here to show their support. Before we get going, I just want to review a few housekeeping items for the media in attendance. We'll begin with opening remarks from each of the individuals here, and we'll move into a brief presentation once everyone's done with their remarks. We'll have a question and answer period following the presentation, and everyone here today will be available to take your questions. For members of the media who are joining us on Zoom, I would just ask for you to please use the raise a hand function. We'll manage our question and answer period that way, make sure everybody gets their opportunity. And then for the media in attendance looking to ask questions, we have a roaming mic, so if you just want to raise your hand, we'll flag you down, present you with the microphone, and just please state your name clearly and your question and the individual that you intend the question for. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce Ron Toigo, owner-governor of the Vancouver Giants and the chair of the WHL Commissioners Search Committee.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very pleased to be here representing the Western Hockey League Board of Governors and the 22 member clubs to make this special announcement. But first off, I just want to thank Ronnie Robinson for all the 24 years of service, the work he's put in to build this foundation, the challenges that he's been through, that represented our league extremely well, and I think it's put our league in as good a shape as it's ever been in, and we're in as good a time as there is for Ron to make his decision to make a move, and so thank you, Ron, for everything you've done for all of us. It's very much appreciated. Earlier this year, the Board of Governors established a search committee and soon after retained the services of Turnkey ZRG, headed by Len Perna. Len has probably placed more commissioners in all the leagues than any other search committee out there. I think from the MLB commissioner to many commissioners with a lot of the larger football organizations. So as we did our search for the search committee, it became pretty clear this is the guy that knows what he's doing. It was extensive. We started with a list of almost 100 candidates that had interest. We pared it down to about 25, and from those 25, we then got into Zoom meetings, and from that, we got into in-person meetings. And as we went through the process, there were some extremely competent candidates that we were somewhat impressed with. But once we got to the in-person meetings, Dan really separated himself. His experience with the NHL for the 10 years he was there, to his experience running Hockey Adidas for the world, and his ability to brand build and all the attributes that came along with that. was really important. But more than anything, his personality shone through, his ability to deal with people, his ability to connect, and his energy that's really needed to help build the brand. So it became pretty clear that Dan was our guy, and at the end of the day, it was unanimous by the entire search committee that this is the guy we wanted to go with. And when we took it to the Board of Governors, it was endorsed by the Board of Governors. Dan will join our WHL staff in January, and he'll start the transition with Ron at that point. And he'll be taking over as commissioner on February 15th. And we're all excited for it. We're really looking forward to it. And so on behalf of the Western Hockey League, Dan, welcome.
Thanks, Ron. So I'll have to start with a few thank yous. First, to the chairman of the board, Bruce Hamilton, who I know wish he could be here today. Thank you, Bruce. To Ron, Toigo, the entire hiring committee, which was comprised of 7 owners. It wasn't easy. These guys, they ran us through the ringer and made us prove that we could do it. It was a rewarding and challenging experience. To Len Perna at Turnkey, his team was professional, again, challenging, fair. The trophies, the leagues, the teams, they all outlast us. The role that we play, and the role that I believe we play as executives in the sport, we're ambassadors, we're shepherds, we help carry the sport from one era to the next. It doesn't belong to us. We're just gatekeepers, right? And I think that if you ask any of us, we would say, I hope we leave the sport in better place when we leave than where we found it. And I think when the group of people in this room, the group of people in the Zoom call thinks about the impact that Ron Robison has had in the 24 years, it'll be unanimous. I think we've got overwhelming confidence that the impact and commitment he had to this league did just that. I have massive shoes to fill, and it's such a privilege to have a chance to learn from Ron over the next few months and to follow in his footsteps. So once again, I'd ask for a round of applause for Ron Robison. So I couldn't be more proud to be joining the best development league in the world. When I think that Connor Bedard was playing in the Western League just 6 months ago, when I think about the fact that nearly 20% of this year's NHL opening night rosters came from the Western Hockey League, or the fact that 2024 NHL Central Scouting list has 63 of our players on that list, more than any other development league, it's fair to say the product on the ice is in pretty good stead. Off the ice, as many of you know, we're proud to present every player in our league with a guaranteed scholarship to the post-secondary institution of their choice, and have been doing so for over 30 years. This year, the owners will distribute over $2.5 million to WHL grads, and there's 350 of them enrolled at 79 institutions across North America, many of them, 210 of them, playing hockey at those post-secondary institutions. Our clubs and our athletes are involved in their communities. In addition to developing great hockey players, we're developing great young people. As Taylor mentioned earlier, there are a few alumni in the room today who have gone on to become leaders in their respective communities. I look forward to meeting them. Our COO, Greg Gardner, who's in the crowd today, is someone who played 5 years in Prince George, Prince Albert, Prince George, and is actually their all-time games played leader. He also took advantage of the scholarship, University of Alberta, and has become an executive in the sport of hockey. I had a personal experience prior to meeting Greg. Ryan Thrussell, a member of the Adidas hockey team for 5 years, played at a variety of teams, including the Memorial Cup champion 1998 Portland Winterhawks. He worked at Adidas in Portland, in Germany, in Toronto. On my team, he pursued his education at the University of BC, again, covered by the WHL scholarship program, and bringing him into a corporate executive life. Our player experience is world-class. From our billet families to our world-class coaching and training environments, the 68-game schedule plus playoffs, nearly identical rules to the NHL in cities across Western Canada and the Pacific Northwest, we continue to be the league of choice for top up-and-coming prospects. And finally, our fans. We're blessed to have some of the most loyal and committed fans in all of sport, from the longtime season ticket holder or booster to the university student who reminisces playing cross ice at the intermissions of our game, or the seventh man or woman, a minor hockey player who stands on the blue line next to our players in most of our games during the national anthems with dreams one day of wearing a WHL uniform. We acknowledge the fans are the lifeblood and are in our communities day in, day out. So just as important as managing franchise matters, dealing with facility and lease topics, and managing hockey operation items is staying closely connected to these fans, delivering a consistent and entertaining experience across the league. To the fans watching today, you have my commitment that serving you will be an integral part of what we do. When you combine these dimensions, we've got a fantastic product. 22 teams spread across Canada and the US, NHL-bound athletes. We need to celebrate and be recognized for the development of these players. We need the league's brand and the club's brands to continue to grow and enhance their reach. We need local, regional, and national businesses and corporate partners to understand that their customer is our customer. We need mechanisms to share and amplify the content around the personalities of our players, and we need to broadcast and streaming visibility to increase. We need to celebrate the history and heritage of our sport, while at the same time understanding that the Gen Z consumer is consuming sport and entertainment in a way they never have before. So a little bit about myself. I had a few formative experiences in high school and university that helped me realize that if I wasn't going to play major, junior, or in the NHL, maybe I could get a business card with one of those logos on it. In my senior year of high school, I had a chance to intern or volunteer in the newsroom at TSN. It was at the Vic Park studio in Scarborough or the Toronto area. I'd be assigned a couple of baseball games each night. I'd be watching the games, I'd be shot listing the games, and then we'd be building a highlight pack to go on a show called Sports Desk. It's now called Sports Center. We'd write the scripts, and it would go on the show, and the talent would execute it and read it. One night I was nominated to run the teleprompter. The talent on the show that night was Rod Smith. We got to the first commercial break, and Rod came over, and he's like, "You're not too good at this." And I'm like, "Nah, I've never done it before." And so that was the end of teleprompter experience. And I don't know that it was that smooth either in how the feedback was delivered. But the point is, it's where it all started for me. I got the bug that working in sports was something that people could do, and I loved it. So I completed my finance degree at Western in London, Ontario. I did an MBA at Miami of Ohio, while as a grad assistant worked on their football and baseball program, or football and hockey programs, excuse me. And then I caught a big break. I had an opportunity and was offered a job at the NHL headquarters in New York in 2006. I was working in licensing and consumer products under Brian Jennings. My first Stanley Cup was that year in 2007. It was Ottawa and Anaheim. I remember I couldn't believe that part of my job was running out the ZAM door onto the ice the moment the championship was won, running into the pile into the championship scrum, and making sure Ryan Getzlaf had his championship hat to wear. It was part of my job. The emotion, the fans, even the emotion of the losing team. Once again, I knew sports are where I wanted to be. So it began. 10 years later, I joined Adidas to lead their global hockey business. With the NHL's blessing, I ended up on the other side of the boardroom table, joining one of the world's biggest athletic brands. It was a chance to broaden my influence, have a bigger seat at the table, and begin to have an impact on the sport. I was counseling clubs into decisions that impacted their brands, collaborating with other big entities like EA Sports or Disney, engaging hockey influencers, consulting with clubs on launching uniforms, brand initiatives like the sport hadn't seen before. It's fair to say I've been living my dream for a while, and to be able to continue this journey with the Western League is such an honor and a little bit overwhelming. So what to expect from here? I still work at Adidas till the end of the month. I'm wrapping my responsibilities in Portland. At the end of December, I'll officially join the Western League here in the Calgary offices beginning in January. During the first few months, I'll spend a great deal of time listening and learning all of the constituents, and it'll start with the league staff. I had a chance to meet them yesterday. It's a lean machine, I'll tell you, but this is an ambitious, creative, energized, and talented group that I can't wait to work more with. I'll be spending time with our clubs, with the owners, management, players, fans, sponsors, our league partners, the CHL, the Q, the O, the NHL, Hockey Canada, even USA Hockey. I'm looking forward to collaborating, especially with Dan McKenzie, with Mario, with David's successor, around how we'll collaborate and create scale and power as a collective. And then, of course, adjacent stakeholders like player agents, WHL sponsors, broadcasters, and alumni. A huge credit to Ron and to the board for building a plan where there's overlap and we've got a period of time for me to learn under his counsel. We'll be working together for the balance of the season, but the official transition or handover, as Ron mentioned, will take place after our Board of Governors meeting in mid-February. Last but not least, I want to express a heartfelt thank you to my family. My wife, Lori, my son, Charlie, my twins, Haley and Taylor. They're all in Portland. My mom and dad and siblings in Markham. My brother-in-law in Vancouver, my mother-in-law in Richmond Hill, my late father-in-law, who would have thought this is cool, this is really cool. I couldn't be more excited about the journey. We're on it together. It couldn't be possible without you. So with that, that'll conclude my prepared remarks. I'd like to bring Ron Robison up to the podium.
Congratulations, Dan, and welcome to the Western Hockey League. And on behalf of all of our clubs and our WHL office staff, in particular, Greg Gardner, Richard Dirksen, and others that are here today, we are delighted that you're joining our organization and look forward to working with our partner organizations. Nice to see many of those individuals here today as well, celebrating today's announcement. We're looking forward to the extensive experience that you bring in the industry to the Western Hockey League, and to see how this will help us grow in the future and have us here in the next little while. We are very fortunate at WHL to have a high caliber ownership. Ron Toigo, Brent Sutter, the Calgary Flames ownership, tremendous examples of that. Russ Parker's here, who's a former owner of the Regina Pats. All are very, very committed to making sure that the league maintains its position as a world-class hockey development league and a leader in the area of player development in particular. I'm excited to work with you during the transition, and we'll look forward to doing whatever I can to assist you in achieving the goals of the Western Hockey League in the future. We now would like to present you Dan, if Ron Toigo could join me with a jersey presentation here. Congratulations, Dan. Why don't you stand in the middle here?
Make us all look short.
There you go. Maybe, and then we can turn it around the back. And as well, there we go. Thank you.
Congrats.
Very good. Congratulations, Dan.
Okay, we can move into the question and answer period now. So we'll go to Glenn Campbell with CTV. First question.
Dan, congratulations. Market like Calgary, bigger market, there's a lot of teams, a lot of competition to get butts in the seat kind of thing. How do you get the buzz going about the WHL, people talking about the WHL, and get more fans into this building?
So thanks for the question. It's great to meet you. I don't think that there's a singular formula to do that. I think that there are a number of ways to do it, but what I think you can count on is trying to do things that generate a level of scale and consistency. So rather than having all 22 teams operating as completely distinct and individual entities, I think we want to try and help build some best practices. Let's look at what's going on. Let's look at what's successful in our sport, in other leagues, and try and bring some best practices to bear. There's no question it's a competitive landscape, and it's a fight to bring consumers into your building. We're a blue-collar sport, and people are spending hard-earned money to come to our games. It better be fun. It better be enjoyable. It better be competitive, and it better be something they want to come back to. And so I'm looking forward to understanding better about what the clubs are doing right now, and then what we can do and contribute to enhance that.
Any other questions in the room? Okay, we'll head to Zoom. Bear with me one moment, but we'll take your questions on Zoom. So as I mentioned earlier, if you do have any questions and you're sitting on the Zoom call, please use the raise a hand function and we'll get to you momentarily. So we're going to start with James Tubb from the Medicine Hat News. Go ahead, James.
Hi, Dan, I guess just for yourself, the Memorial Cup is coming to the Western Hockey League in 2026, and how excited are you for that in your first couple of years, and just how much have you looked at that and what you could implement to that tournament coming to the Western League again?
I didn't catch that totally.
So the question is about the Memorial Cup coming to the Western Hockey League in 2026 and how that might factor into your plans and your approach.
Right. Yeah, thanks for the question. Obviously, the opportunity to host the tentpole event for the Canadian Hockey League is something that requires a tremendous amount of preparation, alignment, buy-in, and is a showcase moment for our territory and for our league. I think that it's nice that we've got a couple of years to lead into that, but as I understand it, the bidding process will start quite soon. I have that right? And so I'm eager to meet with the clubs to understand what we think best case scenario looks like for us, and to ensure that we're providing all of the resources we can to the clubs in this league that want to put their best foot forward and take a crack at it, because you only get an opportunity to do this every few years, and the Memorial Cup is such an important tentpole event for the sport.
James, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just for Ron. What's one piece of advice you're going to give Dan, or that first piece of little secret you give him for success?
Well, I think there really isn't any secret sauce, if you will, for this position. I think the most important thing is to understand that every day is different. It's a lot of fun. It's very exciting. The opportunity to work with 22 individual owners and teams unto itself is always very important to make sure that we understand the needs of our clubs. And I think as a league, we're really a function of how well our clubs are doing, and that's sort of the benchmark, I would say. Day to day is important from a commissioner's standpoint.
Okay, thanks, James. We'll now go to Nathan Reiter with the Prince Albert Daily Herald. Go ahead, Nathan.
Awesome. First off, Dan, congratulations on being the new commissioner of the Western Hockey League. My question for you here this afternoon is, as he's been in the final months of his tenure here, Commissioner Robison has been going on a tour of various buildings around the Western Hockey League. In your first few months here as the new commissioner of the WHL, will you be going out and visiting different markets in the league?
Thanks, Nathan. You better believe it. I think the best way for me to understand the dynamics that exist, the opportunities for us, is to understand the diversity and different dimensions of the different markets in which we operate. I probably have the most familiarity with Portland, having been there for the last 7 or 8 years, but I'm acutely aware that Portland is not the same as everywhere else. I made unannounced visits during a hockey trip up to Spokane with my son a couple weeks ago to Tri-Cities. It was my first time in that building, and to Spokane, and it was a sold-out game on a Saturday night, and it was pretty cool just to see some of the different activities going on with different clubs. I can't wait to spend some time here. You know, one of the nice things about being separated from the family for the first few months while they play out the school year in Portland is I won't have a lot to do in the evenings, and so I plan to be in the hockey rink. I plan to be out there meeting folks, and not just the owners and the executives and the governors. I want to meet the fans. I want to meet the operators, and understand all the things that make this tick. So I look forward to meeting you in person, Nathan.
Nathan, do you have a follow-up?
I do not have a follow-up. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We'll go to Perry Bergson with the Brandon Sun. Go ahead, Perry. Do we have Perry? Okay. Any other questions here in the room?
It's actually a good chance for us to get to know you a little better for the folks who are here. So a highlight of your time with Adidas was spearheading the reverse retro jersey concept. How can you bring innovative ideas like that to the WHL?
Well, I think that it's trying to find some things that haven't necessarily been done, but cater to the audience. And so one of the insights we learned when we were building the reverse retro program was that fans loved vintage jerseys, and they loved the history and the identities of the sport, but they were interested in seeing it in a new way. They were looking for more street culture. They were looking for more lifestyle-inspired products, and it wasn't easy. We all know how traditional hockey is, and the idea of walking in and saying, hey, what do you think about taking one of your old vintage jerseys and remixing it? It wasn't something that everybody was like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. But it did take a fair amount of collaboration and selling, and honestly, a commitment to execute it. So lots of people have done vintage jerseys in the past, and many of the teams, if not all, have probably done some sort of alternate or third jersey. But there was a huge difference at the NHL level between a club rolling it out on a Tuesday night and trying to sell a few more tickets versus saying, no, we're going to roll out 32 at the same time. There's going to be a big marketing teaser and launch campaign that goes with it. Every one of you is going to post the same hashtags and content on social media. So you started to create scale behind an initiative, and fans weren't just paying attention to their home team. If you can start to get to a point where we're coming up with concepts and initiatives where hockey fans are paying attention to what we do as a collective, not just what their home market is doing, that's when you start to unlock a little bit of secret sauce and a little bit of magic. And so, Cami, I hope those are some of the things we'll be able to do as we move forward.
I'll hand it over to Julian McKenzie from The Athletic.
Hi, Dan. This might be a bit early to ask, but was just curious, as commissioner of the WHL, what would you want your legacy to be in this position?
You know, it is early to ask, but it's something I thought about a lot in kind of the recruitment and interview process. I think that I would love part of my legacy to have influenced the sport in a way that is unique, different, and impactful from other leaders and contributors to the sport. Do I know exactly what the dimensions of that will be yet, Julian? Probably not, but I think that I expect and hope that it will be on ice, off ice, commercially, you know, and in a variety of different dimensions. And so I think if you ask me that question 6 months from now, I've identified a bunch of things after a listening tour, after speaking to everybody about, hey, what are some of those things that, the low-hanging fruit or the areas of big opportunity? And I promise to give you a more refined answer at that point.
On that note, you're following the longest serving commissioner in the league's history. What do you make of Ron's legacy, or what do you think that legacy is?
Well, a bunch of things stand out, but unquestionably the education program. You heard it in my remarks. It's something I think the league has to be tremendously proud of, and is unquestionably something that makes this league what it is. You can't just have good hockey. There has to be other parts of it. And I know it's something that everyone associated with the league is proud of, but it's in particular something that really stands out to me. And I think the player experience, I've heard Ron talk a lot about it. We're really just getting to know each other. And so I'm eager to hear more about that. But the overall player experience, and I've had some kind of secondhand or close experience, particularly with billet families and being around the Winterhawks a lot. And, you know, I used to hang around with Peaches, the old equipment manager, and try and get out in the Coliseum ice now and then with the Adidas team. And seeing what life as a Western Hockey League player was, I truly believe that's been crafted and curated by current leadership and management. And, you know, the league should be indebted to Ron for that.
Hey, Ron, we talked earlier, 24 years, so what are you most proud of in your tenure?
Well, I'll pick up on Dan's comment. I think, first and foremost, this is not my legacy. This is really a credit to the ownership in the Western Hockey League, who bought into the plan of really making a commitment to players, and the player experience has been enhanced tremendously based on the investment, the commitment that our owners make. And when you look at our scholarship program, over 30 years of investment by the ownership, in over $30 million, close to 8,000 players benefiting from that program on its own is a tremendous accomplishment. But I look at the overall improvement we've made to facilities, our broadcast platforms, the experience that the players have today, I think, is second to none. It's I remember NHL scouts saying to me, better slow it down, you're almost surpassing some of the NHL teams in terms of the quality of facilities that we have and the type of support we provide to the players. And then the other thing I would say is we've worked extremely hard on our environment for the players and making sure it's always a safe and positive environment. And through work with the Respect Group, Canadian Red Cross, we've developed a world-class Respect in Hockey program that's really educating our players in really important areas. And I think those are areas that we can all take a lot of pride in, and that really starts with the ownership supporting the initiatives that the league office puts forward from time to time.
Okay, I think we'll go back to Zoom. We lost Perry Bergson earlier. I believe Perry is back. Perry with the Brandon Sun, go ahead.
Dan, you face an interesting challenge in that you have 22 very, very different markets with different local priorities and 22 very forceful proponents. How do you envision dealing with that?
Yeah, great question, Perry. And I'm hopeful some of my experience at the NHL League office prepares me for that. Because if you haven't worked in a setting like this, it's often hard to understand the decision-making dynamic. It really is a little bit non-traditional or non-intuitive. We spent a lot of time in the recruitment process talking about this as well, and I was asked some really direct questions about how I would handle one situation or another. And I think the best way to synthesize it, Perry, is what we're gonna, like, there'll be wins and losses for individual clubs on every individual decision that's made, right? It'll benefit some, it'll have less benefit for others, but by and large, we have to be making choices and decisions that on average help the tides rise. And it can't be the same people winning all the time. Everyone in aggregate, with all the decisions, you can't look at every decision in isolation, you'll be mad the entire time. But I think if you look at it in aggregate, all teams have to eventually benefit. And so you've got to be mindful of that when you're trying to figure out how to create solutions and do things that are better for the collective. And those are really hard conversations. And I'm, to be honest, not super thrilled about having to tell Ron that we've made a decision on something that doesn't help the Vancouver Giants. But I think Ron will understand, provided there's an understanding that, one, it's best for the collective, and two, not every decision he's going to be on that end of the agreement. So I hope you'll be okay with it, Ron. We'll figure it out.
We get over it.
All right.
Perry, any follow-ups?
Yeah, just on a more personal basis. And are you moving to Calgary permanently? Is your family moving? Are you going to be between cities? What's the plan?
The plan is my family and I will move to Calgary. I'll be coming up and staying in some sort of temporary living initially to try and get our bearings, figure out what part of the city we want to be in. I mentioned my kids. I've got twin 12-year-olds and a 13-year-old, so junior high age here. I want to make sure that we settle in the right community, and also don't want to disrupt them in the middle of the school year and sport and activity season. They're an active group, and so want to spend a little time making sure we get that right. But the family will join us will join me here at the end of the school year, and we will be relocating to Calgary permanently.
Anything else, Perry?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go to Scott Roblin with Global Saskatoon. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, thank you so much. This question is for Dan. Obviously, with your experience at Adidas, a big part of that is selling a product, and that's probably going to be no different with the WHL in terms of fans coming out to the game, season ticket holders. You know, with the economic situation right now where a lot of families don't have as much disposable income, what are you hoping to do in terms of addressing that and promoting the league and selling the league as a product?
Yeah, it's a super fair question, and I think that when times are economically tough, all businesses have to go through challenges, and particularly in the U.S., you look at Black Friday right now and the deep discounting, and the things people are doing to motivate customers to transact, and hopefully deep discounting won't be our solution, Scott. I think that what we should be doing is trying to create a desirability to be in the rink, and so this you might not see a direct correlation here, but I think storytelling on players, making our fans and our audience feel closer to the athlete, feel more invested in what's happening on the ice and off the ice, it helps make these choices. So I think we have to ingrain our brand and our clubs in the everyday lives of our consumers and our fans. And so there's not one tactic on this, but my suggestion would be is that we can't just think of ourselves as, okay, we're going to throw the next ticket offer, we're going to have the next intermission promotion, or this or that. I think that we need to think more holistically about how the Western Hockey League clubs and players are, we're following them on social, we're engaged in their lives, we're paying attention to their community visits, and therefore when they're playing, we're paying attention and we want to be part of that.
Scott, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up for Ron. Obviously, this is a big day for the league, a league which you've spent almost a quarter century here as the commissioner. Has this become a little bit more real for you in terms of just the next couple of months having Dan near you here and just the advisory role that you're going to provide for him as this transition happens?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the transition and excited to work with Dan to help prepare him for what's ahead. I think there's always new to bring new energy, to bring new thoughts and direction to a league is really important. And I think that the timing is right. And I've enjoyed my time. I've been very fortunate to have tremendous support from the Board of Governors, from our ownership, from our staff, and I've really enjoyed it. But it is time now to assist in the transition. I'm looking forward to that.
Anything else, Scott?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I think we've got one more from James Tubb with the Medicine Hat News, and then I'll do one final call for last questions here in the room. So, James, go ahead.
Dan, you expressed a desire to get the attendance and attention of Gen Z and the younger audience. Is that something that will start up right away when you take over the reins, or what does those efforts look like, and when will they go into effect?
Yeah, I think it's more of a general approach. I don't have a back pocket game plan that is like, let's change everything and how we do it. It goes from the playlists in the arenas to the way and the language we use in our social posts, to the proximity we have to trends. I'm not even sure what the step is called. My son's doing the new iteration of the gritty, and he's trying to get me to practice in the kitchen. The kids want to connect the things that are most important to their life to what's happening in pop culture. And so I think that what I'm asking, and I'm going to ask the clubs to be thoughtful about and mindful of, is our season ticket holder is a really important customer, a really important fan. And we need to do all the things necessary to entertain them, to create satisfaction when they're in the building, to create and keep their loyalty. But how do we grow the pie? How do we make more fans, more customers interested and loyal in our sport? And so I think it'll be a progression. and it'll be over a period of time. I think some clubs will have a higher appetite than others. I think some players will have a higher appetite than others to be part of it. But I don't think it's something where you'll be able to see day-to-day change, but rather, hey, look at 24 months from now versus where it was today, and maybe be able to identify some of the considerations that might look slightly different than they did today or yesterday.
Thanks for that, James. We'll get one more from Nathan with the Prince Albert Daily Herald.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As you're taking over as commissioner here, Dan, there's currently an odd number of teams in both the Western and Eastern conferences. Kind of what are your long-term thoughts on the league possibly expanding in order to even out the number of teams in each conference?
I'm just not there yet. I've learned a little bit about the scheduling matrix, and Richard Dirkson's here, who is our genius and guru who oversees that. I'm just not in a position where I can give you a reasonable answer that would answer that question in any way. Of course, it's something we'll look at. That imbalance is something that creates a little bit of challenge, but we do find a way to make it work. We create some compromises in current times. And I don't know, Ron, if you want to, is there anything you want to expand upon that?
No, nothing we envision in the foreseeable future. I think one of the developments this year has been, of course, balancing our conferences, which is very helpful. From a playoff perspective, we have eight teams, of course, that make the playoffs in each conference, and by having 11 in the Western Conference and 11 in the Eastern Conference this year is very helpful, and we're better aligned in that respect.
Thanks, Nathan. We'll go one more from Perry Bergson with the Brandon Sun.
This is for Ron Toigo. I'm curious, the board of directors, are there things that you're hoping that Dan addresses early on? Or are you just going to kind of let it happen as it happens?
I think we have to let Dan get in the door first and establish, what's important to him. I think one of the big strengths that Dan brings is his ability for brand building that he's done with his years at Adidas and different approaches maybe on that side of it. But no, I think Dan's going to take his time and do the transition with Ron, and probably in the after 6 months or a year on the job, he'll have ideas on which direction to go.
Okay, thanks, Perry. Any last questions here in the room? Okay, perfect. Well, appreciate everyone joining us today. Welcome, Dan, to the Western Hockey League, and we look forward to seeing everybody back in the rink soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.